one of the problems that one hears many, many times with startups is the founder is, the like you used the word inspiration. They are the person that got everything going. Their heart and soul and life is involved in this. And at some point, it probably is important for them to step back in a way or step into a different role. You can't grow um, unless you do, but it's often hard for founders to do that, to kind of feel like they're letting go. They really have to have trust in the person or persons. And the other thing that's kind of interesting, so I see a lot of articles and other things talking about the issues that female founders face in the workplace, but you're describing kind of an interesting role, which you weren't the founder, but arguably you came in and had as much challenge in a different way that required finesse and required communication and required great learning. So, tell me a little bit about, you described that over time when he saw that you weren't going to blow the place up, he gave you more and more responsibility. Yeah. But, kind of talk about from the standpoint, especially of a female coming into a role that, was already established, a male founder. How did you, tell us how you kind of went at it?
Yeah. So okay. So some of the challenges I faced, I think, are faced regardless of your gender, right? So the biggest one, when you've got such a wide role as me, is that you are not an expert in everything, right? So I can argue with the finance team all day. I can argue with the regs team. I can argue with the quality team. Over the years, I can probably argue with the manufacturing team. But when my head of physics, my head of research comes to me and tells me something, I kind of have to, yeah, I picked up enough that I can ask the right questions. But at the end of the day, you have to acknowledge that this is not your area. And you hire people that you trust to do it, and then you have to trust them to do it. And also you have to be prepared to learn from them. So at one point in Lightpoint, my senior management team were, they used to call themselves, not me, they used to call themselves like the grey hair brigade, because they were all, they've all been doing this for a long, it made performance development reviews quite interesting, because the answer to where do you see yourself in 5 years was always retired. Nowhere to go from that. But it was great. And you have to have enough confidence in what you're good at to know what you can't do, and then ask the people that can. And that is the same for anyone that goes into such a wide role. And it was the same for David, which is why I was there. David could do the research, the clinical, and the product, to a certain extent, the product development, in the same way that I could do the finance, the quality of the regs. So we kind of had to trust each other's skills, learn from each other, and then learn from our teams. And that's the challenges you find along the way there, that's non-gender specific. That's all about trusting yourself. You can trust the other people, but if you don't trust yourself to be able to make a good decision, it's never going to work. Mm-hmm. Some of the female specific issues, I could wax lyrical about these for years. I've been to countless awards dues where my husband has been asked, so tell me about the technology. I've been, do you work in marketing? You're very bubbly. Are you in sale? I'm like, no, man, this is my company.
I have to tell you a funny story. So I'm in London, right? I'm running this trading company, and I'm going to an office to meet the sort of my counterpart at a very big bank that will go unnamed, right? So I approach the desk downstairs, the welcome desk, and a man approaches as sort of at the same time as me, but slightly behind me. And the person behind the desk kind of looks past me and says to him, oh, may I help you, sir? Well, turns out he was a limo driver picking up someone And of course, I was the one having the meeting with the big
Yeah.
guy in the building. But it was, like you
It's
say, it was sort
it's
of an
it's
immediate.
kind of it's the assumption when you go.
Yeah.
So one of the first awards dues we
But
went.
you have to laugh. You have to
You
laugh at
have
it.
to, you have to, and you know what? I over the years, I'm kind of at the point I'm just like, oh, again. And I'm going to say that at least 9 times out of 10, when somebody asks my husband if he's there to pick up the award, I just, there are times though, like, and I've been doing this a while. And I'm like, if you don't know by now, I'm here to pick it up. You should. It's got my name next to it. This is not my first rodeo. Just come on now, people. Like, step your game up, boys. There's a lot of that. I mean, you have to. You have to laugh, but we do. Because the problem is as well. So there's 2 issues, right? The first one is the kind of the underlying assumption that you're not there to do the job you're going to do. Right? That's the first one. But then what comes with that is like women who are driven, assertive, are seen as aggressive and difficult, right? I had a boss once, actually at Perkin-Elmer, who said to me, "Someone, you've got the same problem as Hillary Clinton." He said, if she was a man, everyone would think she was great. As it is, everyone hates her. And I was like, does everyone hate me? Is that what we're saying here? But it was just, I was like, it's true. So you'll be in a situation where, for whatever reason, you will be assumed, you could be offended if you haven't been dealing with this for the last 15 years. Yeah, maybe you could be offended. 15, 25, Claire, come on, right? Anyway, so if you haven't been dealing with this for the last 25 years, you could be offended. And if you pick someone up on it, you can then be perceived as aggressive and difficult, and etc. So you got to pick your fights. It's best not to do it with people who are considering investing in the company. I've found, but yeah, I'd like to think it's getting better. There's a particular generation that still have a huge amount of bias. But I like to think that my generation are getting better. I'm in my mid-40s, heading towards 50, and my generation, I think, have got a much less unconscious bias in some areas.
So we talk about women versus men. What about U.S., UK? EU, the UK's been through Brexit, but prior to that, the UK was technically part of Europe. But these are all different cultures. Give us some of your just top line observations of cultural differences that have worked well or have made things difficult.
Sure. The vast majority of my experience has been in the UK. Obviously, I'm now working in Europe, in the EU. I have had some experiences in the US. I got to tell you, I found the US to be more accessible for a startup, So it's more accessible, well, at least on the face of it, it's more accessible. People want to hear what you've got to say. If they're interested, if you run at it with enough, if you scream loud enough, someone will hear you in the US, is what I...
Especially with a British accent, because they like that.
Even mine, which is questionable at best. But yeah, I found in the US, if you scream loud enough, someone will hear you. Whereas in the UK, you can. In the UK, there are still a lot of very closed doors. There are ways in. You just have to know them, but it's still at a certain level. So, the really early stage startups looking for kind of, sub 30 mil, really, really early. There's a lot there, crowdfunding, angels, it's all quite accessible. When you get to that tricky point, just before you go institutional, so you're looking at private money, but you're looking at investments of million plus. So you're probably valued somewhere between 35 and 65, that kind of danger zone. Then there is in the UK in particular is still there's the family offices, and there's the
Mm-hmm.
ultra high net worth people. You've got some philanthropy, but there are introducers. It's a much more closed network, and it comes with a particular structure. Now, as I said earlier, when I was working in tax, I was working on the other side of this, so I had a bit of an advantage in that I knew what these people were looking for. I knew
Mm-hmm.
how to structure a proposal. But if you're an innovative tech guy who's an engineer who's got this company to where it needs to, you're then facing unknown. It really is in looking into the abyss at that point. So that's difficult in the UK, and don't I didn't see it as much in the US.
Interesting. Interesting. How about working in the EU?
So
You're in Barcelona,
yeah, I
so
know.
now
Well,
you
I
are a.
mean, obviously it's amazing. I love Barcelona. I find Europe more progressive than the UK, but not as progressive as the US. It's kind
Okay.
of nicely in the middle. I've not done much fundraising here, so I can't really speak to my experience with the investor groups, but certainly within healthcare. The UK, over the years, that the health service in the UK, we all know, has not been well funded. And as a result, a lot of the practices and systems that they have there, there's still a lot of paper
Mm.
records going on, etc. Whereas Europe seems to be a lot more joined up, a lot more, further
Mm.
ahead in many areas, not all of them, but in many of them. To work and to do clinical trials and to work within kind of clinical development in Europe. I mean, since Brexit, obviously, the opportunities for collaboration, theoretically it still exists with the UK, but I mean realistically
It's hard. Yeah.
yeah.